In the previous video, I detailed how I developed the three main themes that I used in the composition. And at that point, I started to move into the arrangement part of the process. And arrangement is taking your basic melodic materials, your themes, harmonies, whatever raw compositional ideas you have, and deciding what order they're going to go in, right? Deciding on the structure, the form the composition will take. So theme 1, theme 2, theme 1, theme 3, theme 1, theme 2, etc. What order is it going to be in? As well as other details like what instruments will you use and how will you use dynamics. Will one section be quiet and the next loud? Will the first section be loud and the second one quiet? So dynamics and instruments, articulations, overall order of themes, how you will segue from one to the other. That's what arrangement's about. Since I'm writing for electric guitar, I've already got in mind that I'm going to use electric guitars and electric bass and drums, a basic kind of rock ensemble instrumentation. So with an electric guitar, I have a wide variety of palettes, and I've got, you know, all the effects that you can put on an electric guitar. But for this one, I decided to keep it relatively straightforward. I either wanted to use a relatively clean tone, especially for that first theme. I like that really quiet. But I also have some gain at my disposal, so I could take that theme and play it as single note melody with a gain tone. And that might sound neat. Or it might sound neat to just start with the first theme quiet. And then the second theme, turn on the gain. And then maybe go back to the first theme quiet. In this particular part of the process is a lot of fun for me because I get to play the guitar a lot. And what I will do is I will start to just play theme 1, theme 2, theme 3, one after the other with different clean sounds or gain sounds, or maybe I'll turn on some chorus or flanger, or maybe I'll, you know, pick up a different guitar, a different Stratocaster maybe even, you know, instead of my Blondie one. But the arrangement part is also where I start to record. I'm not recording necessarily for posterity, not as a finished product. I may use a recording that I make at this point of the process for a finished product, but usually I'm going to just record the ideas so that I can start to get a sense of how they sound. That way, I'll know how rich or full something is, or if something is too much, or if it needs another guitar behind it, or if I need a rhythm guitar, or if I need a harmony, things like that. So one of the first things I did was start to just play these parts and record them. And I took all three themes and I recorded them all at a low, a medium, and a loud dynamic. Okay, so what that turned into was, with the first theme, it sounded great if I played it at a low dynamic just with a clean tone. Right? So when I was playing the second theme, I noticed that I liked the way it sounded clean down here. But I also like the way it sounded an octave higher with some gain on it, right? So I thought that sounded pretty neat too. So eventually I got around to recording the first theme, theme 1, with an overdrive tone. And I noticed that it sounded better if I left off the arpeggio break at the beginning and just played from the E to the A. And then but I noticed that it sounded kind of thin, so what I did was harmonize it in thirds and then split it in stereo, and it sounded great. So I had that, the first line down here, the melody, and then the harmony I played a third higher. Right, and then and so forth. And that sounded great. While I did that, I also recorded the main melody an octave higher, so it wound up being all the way up here. right? And then I compared and contrasted those. And I noticed that I liked it to have the harmony of a third down here. And then the main melody an octave higher. So it was actually an inversion of a third. It was a sixth, right? It sounded really neat. I also included a variation of the harmony down in this range of the guitar in the middle register. And I noticed that if I turned it on from the neck pickup to the bridge pickup, it had a really neat bite to it that I liked a lot. And so I had all these variations. I had the main melody here, as well as an octave higher. And I had a harmony of a third, except it was a sixth when I was playing the main melody up here. And I had it down here too. Now, I played it one time an octave even lower. I played it in the lower register guitar, and I played this. And I didn't like the way that sounded as a melody, but I realized, hey, that would be really neat if I could come up with a contrasting melody for the rhythm guitar and or the bass, right? So I picked up the bass and played it for a while. Then I came back to the guitar and I played something like this. I was like, oh, that's cool. Because then I can go. And then I can do some other kind of, So I'm arranging. I'm thinking about how I'm going to play a bass line with the main melody. I'm thinking about, am I going to play the main melody with a clean tone or a gain tone? And eventually I settled on the idea of something that's relatively traditional as far as classical forms, A, B, A, C. So in terms of what I was doing with my themes, that was theme 1, theme 2, back to theme 1, and then theme 3, and then theme 1 again. So 1, 2, 1, 3, 1. And I played all of those with clean tones and gain tones and mix and match them and listen to them until I got the idea that I liked starting with the first theme, quiet. Oh, and on the neck pickups, it sounded a little thicker. And then I kept it clean for a little while, but I started to add some overdrive guitar in the background. So when I went to theme 2, I had some overdrive guitar do some volume swells in. So I started on the 5 chord. I started in with some. And then over to an A. And then E. And then a lower A. And then an E. A. And then I went to a B. 5 and 5 to an E. And then. Alright, and I made up some neat little harmonized lines. So I started to ramp up the drama with the dynamics. I realized if I started theme 1 low, then I started to ramp up. By the time I got to theme 2, I was a little bit higher, medium dynamic, so that by the time I got back to theme 1, I could be a little bit louder, and then theme 3 would be blast, and I could, come in. Right, all that kind of... And then, of course, harmonize. All that stuff sounds great. It's amazing. It sounds really neat. So, arranging in this context for this piece of music was a lot of fun because I used my favorite process of simply taking the themes and playing them in a bunch of different ways. I recorded them quiet, I recorded them loud, I recorded them in harmony, I recorded them in different harmony in different registers of the guitar, and mixed and matched it until I liked the end result. All the way through this, I noticed that it sounded really neat, but eventually I started getting the idea that I needed some big dramatic introduction and or outro because I didn't like just starting like that. It was a neat beginning to the formal beginning of the composition presentation of the themes, but I wanted something completely different and really neat as a dramatic way to start it. So I remembered earlier in the compositional process, I was playing scale fragments and sequencing scales, and it kind of sounded neat as a contrast to it. So I came up with the idea that I should do this big descending line in 4s. So I started the whole idea with a Beethoven 5-1 punch, right? The rhythm guitar is down here going, right? And then the lead guitar up higher answering it with a flashy scale sequence down, pattern of fours. And it is just a scale sequence, but I like it because it has some harmonic motion of its own. If you take those notes apart, you'll hear the first four suggest a 1 chord. The next four kind of suggest either a 4 or a 5 chord. And the next, back to the 1. The next, 5. And then 1. Then down to the 5. So you get a lot of harmonic motion implied with that little scale sequence. So after you get that once, the rhythm guitar punch, and then the lead guitar, then I'll play a little rhythm guitar sequence underneath. And then we're going to go to the 5 chord because we're foreshadowing the themes that will develop later on. So a 5-1 to the 5 chord, right? And I scale sequence down from the notes that imply the E chord first. Right? Same scale, but shifted so that it suggests the 5 chord, okay? Then answer that with some lower notes on the rhythm guitar and bass. And then eventually I needed a way to get back up so that I could start the whole main theme. And I came up with this little... Then I came up with this little 16th note pattern in A. And it ends on an E, and then everything will drop and start in on the theme 1. So I thought, oh, this is great. I've got a really neat introduction. And I can even use it for the outro to bookend both sides of the composition. So I've got a powerful intro. I've got themes 1, 2, 3, and then themes 1, 2, 3 I can repeat and do different variations, and then I got a powerful outro for a big punch. So now I've got most of the composition arranged. I've got a rough blueprint of how I want to handle it, and that kind of ends the formal arrangement portion, and that's when I start to get serious about recording, and I'll cover that in the next video. So thanks for watching and listening to this one.